Welcome to our community. Susie Thomas visiting with Steve Robinson from HOT, the Homeless Outreach Team. Good morning.
Good morning. Pleasure to be here.
We're happy to have you, and I think right now, this time of year, weather's getting bitter and cold, and we start to think about those who do not have roofs over their heads. And you are caring for folks in homelessness year-round, but what is the difference between June and January?
Almost everyone has to find something to protect them from this cold, and that's what the shelters are doing. And there are a lot of shelters in our area, and they all have specialties, and they're all working at eliminating homelessness. And we're in there trying to fill the very smallest parts that aren't done yet. There's about 1,000 people sheltered in Stark County in various shelters at different levels, starting with Stark Metropolitan Housing and going back to the YWCA and the Refuge of Hope. And we're trying to cover those people that can't get in.
There's a consortium, is there not? Everybody works together who's caring for the homeless in our region. Can you talk about how that works?
I can. It's more complicated than you would think, and there is an army of people working on homelessness. Most of that is not faith-based, but there are some that are faith-based. But it's called the Continuum of Care, and they all meet together 3 times a year, and they try to figure out how to really cover everything. And so with this cold that we have now, they make plans so that men and women who are not able to get in shelters otherwise in warm weather or cold weather because the shelters are all full can at least get into some kind of emergency situation.
Is there a place for everyone to have shelter of some kind when you do have everybody filled up, when there is a waiting list? How does someone find some place to go?
Well, there's a couple questions wrapped up in that, and the first one is that the answer to the question is call the homeless hotline, and they're going to consign you to one of the agencies that's working on this. Now, my agency, Homeless Outreach Team, has been trying to help with the Women's Overflow Shelter. And I don't know if you recall last time we were here, we talked about a program called Room at the Inn.
Yes.
Where we would get volunteers from the church community to be the innkeepers, and we had a church that was willing to house people. So I'd like to give you an update on that.
Please do.
And I will, and continuing to address the question. Mm-hmm. In the end, there are 2 emergency shelters this time of year right now, and one is for men, and the Refuge of Hope basically just makes space that they don't have by throwing down a mattress on the floor so that no one has to be turned away in the cold. And they are over the top. Even now, their limit is 34, and they've been running at 50 since September. So I think that yesterday they were at 54. Then there's the new overflow shelter that we created on South Market, 1352 South Market. And when we were searching for people to take the room at the inn, this agency stepped forward and actually would like to be anonymous, which is very Christian, to not get glory and credit for your alms. Yes. But at the same time, they really provided it. They provided the room. They provided 2 paid employees to help watch the people and be the innkeepers. And they do still need some volunteers to cover the extra hours. But that is a huge blessing to the whole situation so that almost you can get to 0. And the almost is because sometimes it just gets so complicated that there's families, there's children, and they can't all fit into the shelter unless they split up, and they don't want to split up. And sometimes the shelter's an alliance, the space is open, and they can't leave their family here to ride buses in alliance. And
one of the things that was a little bit disturbing at the recent Share the Warmth event, where they had the Christmas Day dinner to feed so many people who need food on Christmas Day, was they were passing out tents, sleeping bags, and so forth. Please tell me that those are for the summertime, that there is nobody out in this winter in a tent.
I regret that I can't tell you that.
How do you survive?
It's very, very hard to survive in this circumstance. And I want to get to a certain point where we talk about what I call the least of these. Now, you're really probably familiar with the scripture where Jesus separates the sheep from the goats. Mm-hmm. And when he separates the sheep from the goats, the righteous say, when did we see you hungry? When did we see you in need of shelter? When did we see you needing clothing? When did we see you thirsty? And he said, as much as you have done it to the least of these, you have done it to me. So here is our opportunity. Here is the challenge for this church. Do you want to help Jesus himself? Mm-hmm. You'll never be able to get him a gift. You couldn't buy something beautiful enough or good enough for that king. Yet, here's this chance to help by helping the least of these. So there is a group in our town, in our community, that can't be helped. And I want to illustrate this very carefully because the people that are in the field working hard don't deserve to have anything negative said about them. But there's a group that's working with the men, and they don't want to take addicted people in their shelter because they want people to get hope, and they feel like the opposite is contagious and drags people back and down. And so every night they take a breathalyzer. They have to pass a drug test at random. That leaves people that can't pass that drug test, people that can't breathalyze, out in the cold. And so, and I want to say that in the coldest months, sometimes they'll even just let them say, you can spend the night, but you got to think about what you're going to do tomorrow. Because they just care. They're such caring people.
Yes.
But I like to think of it as they've got their finger in the giant dam, the levee, and they're holding back the water in one spot, but somebody needs to be over here with the addicted people, and so that they don't die on our watch. And last year, actually it was March, someone did die on a park bench in Stark County. And it was very moving to me. His name was actually Steve, my name, and I just don't want to see that happen again. And so we're literally begging for a building, begging for the funds to get a shelter that's so minimal that people want to get out of that shelter into the better shelters, but that at least protects these guys who can't quit their addictive behavior from the cold. And I want to tell you another thing. It's kind of like, this is when I get on my soapbox. When you give people cash that are homeless, you are not generally helping them. 90-some% of those people are trying to support their addictive behavior. And I tell people...
Steve, let me stop you right there. It is so hard to live with yourself if you don't. You drive by that person, that face haunts you for the rest of the day. Just, out of self-preservation, so a face is not haunting you for the rest of the day, we feel that we must give them something. There's something better than cash, you're saying. I hope you're getting to give them something, just not cash.
Right. And remember that homeless people generally are not panhandling, and panhandlers are not generally homeless.
Oh, well, how do we know that? That's so good to know.
Because that's an important statistic, and I want to make people aware of that. And people that panhandle will continue to panhandle over and over and over, and they'll live that lifestyle because you give them money. If you stop giving them money, they'll stop. But the people who are really in need, we have our card, which I've given you,
yes,
the Homeless Outreach Team, and they can call that. And you could ask me almost anything. I say almost because I'm not absolutely certain to know of every resource, but I know so many of the resources that are available to solve the problem that the real person who needs to get money has. I know the resources and the people that have caseworkers, and they're not going to turn on their electric with your $1, $5, $20, but we know places that they can go where they actually can. And we know people that will help them if they have mental issues to get disability. We know people that will give them temporary shelter that goes 90, 120, even up to 2 years, depending on the situation. We know people that will help them get a bus ticket to Tallahassee. All of these charities, we know about how to get them and where they're at, what number to dial. They can call this one number. And we also have, from the Total Living Center, Pastor Bartos free lunch cards. And
he was
I
here
recommend
yesterday.
Wonderful. God bless him. What an incredible thing he's doing with the free lunch. So every single day of the week, you can get something hot to eat. You can get out of the cold right there. And last year, he accomplished 365 days open. Every holiday, there were people there. He even brought his own family there. And just kept the place open, feeding people soup and good nutritious food, giving groceries away twice a week. So there's a lot there to help you get through, and we have those cards too, that we call them the free lunch cards. And so you give those to people, and they also have the numbers to contact for people for real emergencies to get real help. That $1, that $5, that $20 is enough to buy, more beer, enough to get numb to the situation that it is in, but it doesn't really help.
That's right. We do not want to be encouraging any destructive behavior or make their problems worse. We really do, with a pure heart, want to help the person that needs help. So
Right,
you're
instead of
saying that
enabling.
instead of enabling, thank you, exactly. So by giving them a hot card that will give them, here's where you go. Here you can get food and nutrition and care here.
Right. And
how do we get these hot cards?
Well, I'll leave some here, and I'll leave
Okay.
some at the Total Living Center.
Great.
And then you can call our number, which is...
Your number, which is on your card right here, and it is 330-754-4687. Again, that's 330-754-4687. Yeah, and as for Steve Robinson, Homeless Outreach Team, stands for, well, that's what HOT stands for.
Yeah, that's one way to get an old fat guy to be hot. Have it on the back of my T-shirt now, and people walk up there, they're all looking at me like, how can that guy be hot? But I am.
You've been in business now as HOT for how long have you been serving?
We started in March of last year when I found out about the guy who had been dying, and I was working with the Total Living Center before that.
Mm-hmm.
And the year before that, I was in business, in the computer business. And when I went into retirement, I just don't believe there's a retirement for us Christians. And this is my retirement plan. I want to really make a difference for Jesus. I want to be there for him. I want him to be able to say, well done, thou good and faithful servant. So
can't think of a better use of time. We've been given our days, we've been given health, we've been given so much. You talk about the 1%. Our country, compared to the rest of the world, everybody is in the 1%. But there are those among us that are, and it's not often that it's something that's ongoing. It can be just a really hard patch. Is that what you see? That some people, a job loss can really throw people for a loop, and they may lose their home, and then you really are going through a rough patch, and it's very difficult to dig yourself out of something like that.
it is, and there's a lot of people that hit that bump. They're already up to their necks, just like so many, and they're living paycheck to paycheck, and then boom, something happens, and they don't have that paycheck, and they are in real trouble. And we want to help those people. There's other people. I never met so many people that have had brain surgery than since I started working with the homeless.
Really?
It was shocking. I think I knew 2 people. I could count on my 2 fingers all the people I knew. And now I can use all my fingers and all my toes, and I'd run out. People have brain surgery, and they're not the same person they were. They lose their job. They lose their family. Everything goes bad. And then, of course, they want to turn to alcohol to numb the pain. And it's just a terrible downward cycle. And they find themselves in the gutter one day, and here they are, absolutely homeless. No relative will let them stay at their house any longer. And I am thrilled. I mean, I am really, truly thrilled to be a part of the solution. And it's an exciting thing.
Let's talk about that solution. You are starting to see, because you've been doing this long enough now, you're seeing some real happy endings and some solutions and people actually getting to reverse that cycle, yes?
Yes, absolutely. And one of my favorite stories is a woman. She was coming to the Total Living Center services on a Wednesday night. She was getting the groceries. She was living out of her van. At the time, I didn't realize she was living out of her van. And she was such a nice person, and she would help with the serving of the food and the services, and helped us, the kids, with coloring books and things to get them to keep busy while the church services were going on. And separately, I had a person come to me and said, "There's a van out in the parking lot with 5 dogs in it, and I'm just worried for those dogs." Here it was the same person. They were parking their van on a friend's property, and in the end, the axle on that van broke. The van got impounded. The dogs, oh my goodness. She had all of her kids, all of her dogs, and she had nowhere to go. And we began to work with her, and with the help of the Salvation Army, the Total Living Center, private donations from Sunday school classes at First Friends. We got her a house with 3 bedrooms, heat, electric, all of it turned on and started. We rounded up furniture from churches that donated, and the first month came and she didn't have a job. And I'm like, "What's going on?" She said, "Well, I put an application in at these 2 places." And I thought to myself, she doesn't realize you put applications in until you get a job.
Yes.
And I said, "Well, I'm going to pay this next month's rent," with the help of other people helping me, by the way.
Wow.
And her job for earning that money was to get a job. And we had her call and call and call. And today she works at a favorite place where they serve donuts and coffee of mine. And she's been there. It's been almost a year now. So I'm such a happy success story.
That's so wonderful.
And they had their first Christmas. Oh, my gosh. It was such a delight, the tree and the presents. And
yes.
It was just a very great story to be able to tell. And we're working on other stories like that. And we need people to want to be involved. And we definitely need a place for these men who can't throw down anywhere to shelter up. And we need the funds to do it. And please don't think that your church is on it, because I have been knocking on church doors and I get turned away 60 times for every 10 times that somebody says. And it's part of it isn't that the church doesn't care. It's that they have so many people knocking on their door. They can't tell that this is Jesus incarnate knocking on their door asking for help with the homeless. It's just another person to them. So if you're listening now, and you go to a church and you want to connect your church to this kind of solution to help these kind of people, make sure that you connect me with them by name so that they know that, hey, this guy is really in there making a difference.
We're talking with Steve Robinson. That's the name, Steve Robinson from the Homeless Outreach Team. Going to take a quick break. We'll be back after these words. You're listening to Our Community.